JJ, you recently, I think a couple weeks ago, had a really good tweet about how running back target share has been trending down over the last 3 years league wide. It was a really nice little table that showed all those percentages, and it's a pretty stark difference from 2018 to now. It doesn't look like it in the percentage, but if you look at how many targets that is for running backs, it is quite a difference. I'm wondering, like, when you are looking at teams and you're trying to figure out, where they're going to distribute those running back targets, what kind of things are you looking for when you're looking to nab those guys who are the pass catchers in those offenses?
Yeah. So, from a player projection standpoint, the thing that's going to be stickiest year over year is always going to be volume. So if a running back saw 100 targets last year, chances are he's not going to see 7 targets the following season, right? So volume is sticky year over year. But if you look at that chart, and if you look at, really, I think this year was more glaring than any other season, because we had some quarterbacks, a decent amount of quarterbacks changing teams, and guys like a Phillip Rivers in particular, who was at a team for a really long time, where we have this really big sample of Phillip Rivers on the Chargers, and we got to see what happens when he goes to a different team. And what we saw was Indianapolis saw a spike in running back target share. And if you look at this is very, like, I haven't done any sort of testing on this and like deep research, but if you look at the way running back target shares fluctuate, it does seem for the most part that they're pretty strongly tied to two things. One of them being that there's not a lot of alternative options, but then the other one being that it's quarterback driven, that it's the quarterback who's targeting those players. And so Phillip Rivers going to leaving the Chargers, they don't see as high of a target share this season. With Justin Herbert, wasn't as bad as it could have been, but if Tyrod Taylor were under center, it would have been way worse.
Yeah.
But I'm speculating a little bit, but I do think that dumping the ball off is very much a quarterback related thing. And then from a general trends standpoint, everything we talked about earlier with quarterbacks and the quarterback rushing component and that becoming more and more important, I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing, aside from the injuries to like CMC and Saquon Barkley, like, of course, we're going to see somewhat of a dip, but the drastic dip could easily be the dual threat abilities of these quarterbacks, where if they're under pressure, they're not dumping the ball off as much, and instead they're taking off and running. And so if you look at a chart of the top teams in terms of running back rush share this past season, the only team ranked in the top 16, the top half of the league, that had a mobile quarterback was Cam Newton. And that team had the worst wide receiving group in the league. So, of course, not only that, but that offense is historically, they always target running backs anyway in New England. So we knew that that's a thing. And then you look at the bottom of the list, it's Lamar Jackson, it's Josh Allen. It's even Russell Wilson was middle of the pack. It's the way that these quarterbacks generally operate. So if you're going to get more mobile quarterbacks and dual threat quarterbacks in the league, that's probably going to lower the target shares for the running backs on their teams to some degree. Now, like I said, this is high level speculation, but I do think it makes some logical sense.
No, totally. I was talking about that a little bit earlier in the season, where these guys' legs are their check down, right? Like Lamar Jackson, I don't think we're ever going to see a high target share in Baltimore, because Lamar's going to tuck it and run whenever he's got the chance, instead of dumping it off to, unfortunately, J.K. Dobbins, which we would love to see. But we just got to make sure that we're realistic about the fact that that's probably not going to happen. So I really like how you put that. And, we're big running back guys ourselves. Ty and myself, we love to see some good running backs, and the landscape is looking pretty nice so far. So definitely some cool things to dive into when we're trying to build our rosters and look for those guys in those later rounds, like, who are going to get those targets. Like a guy like, obviously he was injured this year, but Tariq Cohen comes to mind, and those guys who just kind of soak up the targets because they command them, right? So